No. Just double check that we are on. And we're good.
Great. Into the green room we go.
Good morning, everybody. Happy pre-Thanksgiving.
I know.
It's so
well,
exciting.
listen, it's Wednesday morning. It's going to confuse me probably all day.
It confused me all day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's start that way. First off, when you have a show about what you're thankful for, of course, listen, there's a myriad of things, of course. It's kind of like an Oscar speech, I know I'm going to leave somebody out. I almost wanted to write it down.
Yeah, I did too.
But let's start with health, Ruta. Just to the extent of, listen, COVID survivor as you are, health, you've recovered pretty much everything, would you say?
I have moments where I still get tired. So,
okay, sure.
So most of you know I had COVID. My mom had COVID. Now my husband has COVID. So we're
I wasn't going to say that,
yeah,
but it's interesting. Survived you having it and your mom having it.
Yeah, and he has.
And he'll survive this too.
Oh my gosh.
Well,
this is the other thing. It's funny because it actually kind of shifted. So it went from respiratory, and my mom and I had it almost a month and a half ago. Can you believe it? It's been a long time. And so it was actually October 4th when I got diagnosed. And he just got diagnosed a week ago, and he had totally different symptoms. He had head cold. It was congestion, runny nose, sore throat.
Is that why he went to get tested because he was symptomatic?
Well, because he was like,
no fever though.
No fever, no cough, no fever. Body aches and no sense of smell is fine, taste is fine. So it was really funny. So I'm like, Nordine, go get tested. He's like, it's a head cold. I'm like, you know what, just go get tested. Because he also works with the public. So I'm like, go get tested. And he usually gets routinely tested anyways with his company. And he did, he got tested and it was positive. And so now he's down in quarantine for 2 weeks. And it's
crazy.
It's been a crazy ride, but however, the numbers are staggering.
Well, they are
staggering, and there are still people out there, even on my Facebook page, who are just still not either in denial or taking it so lightheartedly, and it's so wrong.
Well, it didn't go away after the election.
No.
Okay,
oh
right.
God,
well, no, I mean that was a common term that we heard, a common phrase, that we heard. And although the virus, it's a virus. Viruses are going to do various things. So let's start off by being thankful for technology and the vaccines that we have coming down the pipe.
Okay, well, now that we're going to get into a little other topic, because this is, I think, an interesting topic. And that is, okay, we came up, and thank God, and thank Pfizer. And even I have to say, thank the Trump administration for putting forth this warp speed kind of
the sole area of focus to a certain extent
was to come up with a vaccine, and they did it in record time. I mean, you're talking 9 months. It usually takes 8 years to go through a process for something. My question is, why could they do it for this, and why can't they do it for other things?
Let's
all ask that
question. I
I
actually have a scientific answer to the extent of this virus. Because, and a lot of people are afraid of this, Ruta, and it's a really interesting and important part of the conversation because vaccines only work if people take the vaccine.
Yes, that's going to be the other.
So specifically, the vaccines that are messenger RNA, which means that they need to program a piece of virus literally that goes in the liposome, the fat globule that carries it into the body to induce you to first form that spike protein so that your body can react to it. So literally the messenger RNA carries that into the cell. Scares a lot of people.
Well, it does, and there's
so they don't want anything else being manufactured in a cell. Right.
Okay, gotcha.
So it's actually a process that's been well in development for 10 to 15, 20 years even. And this is the first time that they've really utilized it to ramp it up in that manner. So the technology's been there. The tagging of the RNA, so to speak. Right. Okay. So this is the first utilization of it in this manner. And that scares people. And a lot of reason why the people aren't going to take it. Now, my understanding is the AstraZeneca vaccine, the latest one to come out that doesn't need to be frozen. It's done more in the conventional fashion.
But I think, didn't AstraZeneca have just a 70%?
Listen,
think
we
that
we
was
don't
the
know.
only thing.
Those numbers are interesting.
Yes,
They gave a
'cause the
small
other one-
dose followed by a larger dose and
Yeah.
kicked it to 90.
90,
But
yeah.
you need 2 shots for all of them.
Yeah, which is interesting. And the other interesting thing is this going to be something that's going to become routine, like a regular flu shot? I mean, are we
Those are
always
all
have
the
to have
questions we don't
a
know.
COVID? But the thing is, like, people are like, a lot of people on Facebook are asking, oh, are you gonna take the shot if you have a chance? I'll be first in line because I had COVID. I don't want it again. It was not fun. And so I'll be like one of the first ones to volunteer for it. I would love to have it. So
Personally, I don't have a lot of fear of it.
I don't have any
mean,
fear of
at
shots.
my age necessarily, if I had kids, I would surely do a lot of research about it, the various additives. There's of course, a lot of the anti-vax, and anti-vaccine sentiment comes from, the autistic and,
yeah, and
other
that's a different
fears,
deal.
and listen,
But
those have been
honestly,
fairly
from-
well delegitimized by research.
They have been, and that's why I'm still.
But I have a lot of
pro-vaccine.
autistic parents in my practice that do believe it. So to me, listen, let's move forward a little bit because it is the green room.
So
It
let's
is the
keep
green
going, yeah.
room. So let's go political. Let's
Ding dong, the witches.
let's honor truth. Let's honor
Let's honor
truth.
truth and science.
It's something else to be thankful for.
And
I
getting
think
our standing back.
well, no, I thought yesterday's news conference with President-elect Biden's
Yes.
team. I mean, I'll be honest with you. It's one of the things that gives me reassurance that we're heading the right direction, because one of the things that I always found confounding about, Trumpism, so to speak, and those that have followed President Trump is that the people that he's hired have not been experts in what they've done and have not been out there for the good of the people, but maybe against regulation, against environmental,
and it showed,
against climate, and it showed.
And he didn't even fill half his posts, and
Oh.
then he fired the rest. So
Well, it's going to be interesting to see who gets confirmed and who doesn't get confirmed. I think interesting.
He picked some really, though, I think some really neutral people.
They've already been confirmed by the Senate, a lot of
in
them.
the past, like John Kerry and
Right.
others. The only other thing that's interesting, though, there was some talk that he might actually bring in somebody from the Trump team as a show of good faith. I think that's a kind of walking a fine line, just because the progressives didn't get a placement yet. So you're kind of spiting your own party on a sense, because that makes up a big delegation from the Democratic Party, and all the youth is more oriented towards the Progressive Party. So I don't know about that call. So, but it was just nice to see professionalism. It was nice to see people who, like you said, are experts, who have been there, done that, know the system, know how to work things, and just are like a whole different.
So I'll give you my checkpoint. I changed back to watching local news at this point.
Did you?
I did. I don't think I have the compulsion that I have to watch
No.
MSNBC every day, see what's going on. I do like to catch an hour, a couple hours. I catch a little bit of Fox News too, to see how they're portraying what I view to be a very small man, President Trump. Please grow, be presidential at this critical point.
He didn't care while he was president.
But we don't need destruction right now. We don't need you to set it up to make it more difficult for the next president to come on and lead the country, so that 4 years later, maybe you or one of yours, can do. No, we don't need that now.
Well, the thing that's interesting is, as an American, seeing what he wants to do to set up the next president, where there's always historically been a smooth transition of power, to have somebody purposely and negligently try to set up the next administration for failure. It's unprecedented, but everything he's done has been
No, it was like yesterday's news conference, the 60 seconds about the stock market being whatever. Let's talk about the 250, 60,000 people that have passed going into Thanksgiving. Give a presidential message to people. Please be careful over the week.
What about the food lines? Here he is talking about the stock market. You think those families sitting 3-4 hours in Houston, in Sarasota County, they had 4-hour waits to get Thanksgiving meals to families. You think
want to
those
talk
people
American
give a crap about the stock market? They're trying to get food on their table.
That's
ridiculous.
That's the definition of American carnage.
Oh,
but let me tell you what's interesting also, Ruta. I think because of how this came down over the 3-week non-concessionary yet period of time, but now moving into transitionary time. Is anything boarded up at this point? Have all the boards come down, right? Has there been any social unrest? Has there
No.
been, right? And
There've been Trump parades, which are I find fascinating. The man
what will
lost. Why do we
January
need to film
20th look
parades?
like in this country?
You're going to have, I think it's going to be very different from, well, the inauguration itself is going to be different because I think of the social distancing, because outside of that, if it wasn't, I think he'd have bigger crowds than Trump had for his inauguration.
Don't that start, listen, didn't that start that whole presidency off with Sean Spicer?
Yeah, remember Sean Spicer?
I know, he's still on Fox News all the
Oh, God,
time.
is he?
Oh, no, he's a big, yeah,
And One America got shut down because of falsehoods. YouTube actually shut them down as a punishment for 1 week because they were the narrative was so misinforming and so wrong and blatant lies that YouTube as a channel shut them down as a punishment. And again,
it's a serious discussion. Where is the truth gonna come from?
And the sad part is, if you keep pumping misinformation to people and they're buying it, where's the moral compass gone? Again, where is the moral compass? Somebody said, made an interesting comment, and they said something along the lines of, remember turning into the news at night and you see Walter Cronkite? You took what Walter Cronkite said at face value. Now you have people who are spinning the truth on purpose and misleading on purpose. It's a very frightening thing. And then, people are starting to call it like the state TV because they're playing only information that the leader wants to hear. That's very communistic.
It's bad.
It's very bad, and it's very dangerous, and it's truly a very bad path to take. It really is. And it's a dangerous one for a democracy.
It's where we're going to find our mutual truth as a country, right? And how we're going to move forward. And if we can't even decide on something as virulent as this particular virus. Listen, the reason this virus is so...
unite to fight again. It
is. And we still need to talk this consistent message because, listen, this virus is interesting, Ruta, and you know it because some people become extremely ill with it and other people not so. And it's been one of the most confounding parts of all of it. And until we know exactly what that key is, we need to protect those that do become significantly ill from it. And they don't all have to be comorbid patients. They don't all need to be elderly. And that doesn't mean that there aren't young, healthy people that don't die in auto accidents and don't die from cancers and things of that nature. But if there's things that we can prevent, it just makes sense. And I loved your post to the extent of a simple mask. I mean, I'm just kind of used to it at this point. I don't know. I don't really enjoy it.
But if you're this is the thing, if you're quoting yourself to be one, religious, Christian,
pro-life,
you refuse to wear a mask. Explain that to me, please. Explain.
Is it more important at the beginning of life than it is at the end of life, or something like that?
As like when you're born to protect. I don't understand it.
One of my patients yesterday is an assisted living director, and we had to talk about it. We have to get past this so that our elderly residents in our assisted living and nursing homes can get back to the thanks to their family and the hope that they want and need,
Well, and that's something like, to be thankful for, that, the ones who didn't get it, count your blessings. And I say that I argued with a woman the other day on Facebook because she didn't have it. And I said, count it as a blessing, don't, and I said, you're lucky that you didn't get it. And I said, for the families that lost family members or struggling or have families in the ER not in the ICU right now currently, do you know how disgraceful you are to those people and how dishonorable you are and lack of respect you're showing to those people? These people are praying for family members not to die, and you're making light of just wearing a mask. Just got to stop it. You just have to stop it.
As we go into a very unique Thanksgiving, and we do, and holiday season, and it will be. So, let's go to the positive and talk about all. And listen, I want to thank my patients for their commitment to the practice. We do appreciate it. It allows us as a compassionate cannabis clinic to carry out the message, right? And listen, as you know, Ruta, I had one of the most stressful moments of my life. I'm going to be 65 in May. Often does not my heart beat as it did, even having to say people's, listen, the ER. But when I talked to the state of Florida Medical Board, okay, last week for my 3 minutes and 45 seconds.
Okay. If you missed this, it's up on our website on VeniceCare.com.
That was stress, I'll tell you.
There's a committee that meets, and it's extremely frustrating to listen to them because they're supposedly making decisions and they're discussing medical marijuana, yet their panel doesn't have anyone that knows anything about medical marijuana, which is amazing to me. They have doctors, but they've never ever seen a patient with medical marijuana. And at one point they were closed, and finally they opened it to the public where members of the committee could actually address what was said. Dr. Barry gave one of the most stellar, not even speeches, just a rebuttal to what they were saying. It's about 3 minutes. Tune in, take a listen. He shut them down to the point where after he spoke, the meeting ended because there was nothing else to say. In defense of medical marijuana, its past, its future use, the results have been for somebody who's treated close to probably 7,000 patients under medical marijuana. We have to be thankful that it is medical allowed in this state. We are thankful for that. But there's such a long way to go still for patients, and you are such a defender of that. And so if you haven't listened, please take a quick click and listen for 3 minutes. It was a great rebuttal. It really was.
Listen, I rarely get nervous about anything, but I actually had some notes, because you're only allowed to have 3 minutes. So I had 3:45, which is pretty good. But sometimes you go on too long and they cut you off and this and that. So I wanted to be very succinct. But what I wanted to explain was, as you've heard on the Green Room, those that follow us, being a 2020 doctor in 2020 demands that sometimes you do push the envelope, that you do question, that you do bring other doctors along with you, because the government and big pharma have had such a big head start on the misunderstanding about this not simple plant, quite frankly, very complex plant, a plant that still has terpenes and flavonoids and other cannabinoids and things we don't know. And it's the lack of research, of course. You know what, Ruta, let's, as they always say on Passover and stuff like that, next year in Jerusalem, let's think about next year at this time. Wouldn't it be great? Isn't that a great show? What would we like to give thanks for next year?
Well, I would protect, and judging from the last 4 years, I protect nothing anymore.
Listen.
And this year for me personally, I protect zero.
So just to wrap up that part of the conversation, a year from now, you know what I'd like to give thanks for? I'd like to give thanks for the removal of Schedule 1 designation, right?
Yes.
That is something that can be done without legalization or other reforms, although we want expungement and we want a lot of things to go along with it, but we got to start the research, right? It's interesting. You're allowed to do the research, but it just can't be federally funded research. And those that do research lose research dollars in other ways. So there's restrictions.
Huge restrictions, and they don't want to fight that, and I don't blame them. But I am thankful to other states who actually voted also, and they actually passed, whether it's recreation or medical, for the first time this year. That was major. Well,
cannabis is more popular than the politicians. I mean, that's easy.
And it is. But again, it's just a funny thing that it really.
Can we have a truth party maybe based on cannabis? I mean, you just wonder what does bring people together. Seriously,
it's always breaking bread. It's always the social stuff. I mean, like I have friends who are ardent Trump people. But you know what? Put politics aside, break bread. You always find commonality. And
5 years ago, we did.
But I'm still grateful for that because there's some, and I still do. Like, I mean, there's the ones that are reasonable, like on both sides. And honestly, it has to be both sides. It has to be. I'm grateful. Oh, let's go for gratefulness. So I'm grateful for a lot of things. Obviously, this year, I'm grateful for the first responders and the nurses and the physicians.
Thank you, Ruta. That would have been an Oscar moment for me, not giving a big shout out to everybody who's still out there the front
fighting
lines.
and
Absolutely.
I mean, my God, with the mask marks and not breathing, exhaustion beyond belief. They're burnt out, they're so tired. thank you, thank you, thank you. To our staff who we never closed our doors during the pandemic, and we still are not. Even though we're doing telemed, they're devoted, they're coming in. Again, we mask up with patients, but you're at risk. You see them in the public, and anybody who has face-to-face interaction with the public is at risk. But to the hospital staff, God bless you, because you're beyond exhausted. For people who, again, please just wear a mask. That's all I have to say. And again, thankful for everything that everything has a curse, everything has a blessing. So
listen, we're still in a peaceful transfer of power right now,
are.
and let's all hope that as we go forward with our green rooms, Thursdays typically, not Wednesdays. I gotta keep
and I'm
reminding
thankful to
myself
our
today.
audience. We have such a great,
sure.
Our audience has grown. So thank you all for tuning in regularly. Our
Right.
audience is in a couple thousand now. So we have and it's a national audience. So thank you if you're listening in Florida from Sarasota, Venice area, all the way across the country. Thank you for tuning in.
Listen, it keeps my blood pressure at a reasonable, listen, I think we all, that's what's so difficult about this entire COVID experience, once again, is trying to keep that sense of community that we all have always had.
Yeah.
And we need to not just recognize the negatives of Facebook and the negatives of Twitter, and there are plenty.
And the negatives of politics, because put politics aside, it was funny. I was thinking about 9/11 the other day, and I was like, remember how everybody came together as Americans? And I don't want to say only because those people died, but you're talking, I don't remember the exact number, 3,000-4,000 people died. You're talking 250,000 fellow Americans have died in our country.
And it shouldn't be a commentary on where the country is, because I don't think it's where the country is. I think it's where the leadership, unfortunately,
and again, the politics made a division. This is something that's a unifier. Americans, your neighbor is dying. And again, in the hospital, that ICU doctor, a nurse who's saving your life, they're not asking your political affiliation. So please, I'm thankful that we have an opportunity to set back a little bit now. The election's over. Take a step back. Remove the politics out. Let's move forward and just be neighbors again, and talk to each other again. And
I think a great goal would be come July 4th, that we could all gather again and watch the fireworks explode as a celebration of America. Right, because I think that'll be about 6 months into a new administration. And hopefully everybody working together.
And hopefully
we'll have our vaccine. That's the point, right? Enough vaccine. It'll be summer. Yeah. So let's, as we say, for sure. But listen, a quick green room this morning, Don. We probably should have started it earlier. Who would have known? And I know I let people out. Thankful for my family, of course, the health of my family, friends, everybody out, and all of our different communities. I think that's one of the great things
we have such a mix of
It is. I got to learn Lithuanian. You have to learn Lithuanian. I know, or I won't be able to read some of that translation stuff.
I was going to say, yeah.
Everybody, we will see you next Thursday in the green room.
Be safe, wear a mask, and take care of each other.